Western military aid to Ukraine has often been plagued with self-deterrence, fear of escalation, and therefore has followed a piecemeal approach. Delayed decisions, equipment not making it to the battlefield on time have made a difference for the worse and have cost an undetermined amount of Ukrainian lives. So what does Ukraine need at this point? Is it too late for a military solution? And how to ensure a just and enduring peace? To answer these questions, I'm now joined by Reuben Johnson, a research fellow at the Kazimierz Puławski Foundation. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight on World News.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, and now I have very skeptical introduction. Obviously, we recognize the tremendous progress and aid that has been given to Ukraine. But based on what we're seeing in the country right now, after 1,000 days since the full-scale invasion, I think I'd like to pose the first question to you. And what is it that Ukraine needs at this point to make a meaningful difference?
Well, the one thing you keep hearing from everybody, from everywhere, is more air defense, more air defense, more air defense. Now, some of that is hampered by the fact that you can only build missile systems and the missiles that shoot them so fast, and everybody's trying to expand capacity. But the capacity that exists is so small, particularly with some of the European systems, which are quite good. There's just not enough of them. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. The second thing is I have people I talk to. I mean, I talk to people in Ukraine all the time about this, and they're constantly begging for armored vehicles, not just tanks, but infantry, armored personnel carriers or infantry fighting vehicles. I mean, vehicles that are even the old M113, which was used in Vietnam to great effect. They're begging for these kinds of systems. And then a more rapid integration and use of the F-16s, which have been sent to Ukraine, but so far have not seen as much action as we would like.
Is it too late for a military solution in Ukraine? Do you think our time is limited because we have a president-elect set to take the reins in about 2 months?
Well, I don't see Trump just suddenly rolling over and giving Putin everything he wants. He's a businessman, and he's not going to sign up for a deal that's going to be that's going to reflect poorly on him. I mean, Trump is sometimes compared to the famous American entertainer, sensationalist P.T. Barnum, who created the Barnum and Bailey Ringling Brothers Circus, among other things. And P.T. Barnum had a famous saying, which is, he said, "There's a sucker born every minute." Well, Trump doesn't want to look like a sucker, so that's not. I can't see that happening. Yes, there is time for a military solution, but the shipment of weapons in quantities and at a tempo that is serious, that's what needs to happen. I mean, one of the commentators I listened to about the situation in Ukraine said that hey, you know, the Americans are always a day late and the weapon system short. That hasn't changed in a year and a half or more. I mean, we have to remember that for the first year of the conflict, what we were sending to Ukraine wasn't anything like a real arsenal. It was like a petting zoo. So the tempo and the volume would have to increase measurably.
Right. One thing we've witnessed a little bit over the last year or so is the Russians have adapted to the Ukrainian ingenuity of the use of drones along the front lines. And this has essentially shifted the war from artillery, trench warfare situation that we had in the earlier stages of the war now to one where drones are really important. And when we talk about air defense and some heavy equipment, as you've just mentioned, we have to think about cost and the enormous cost of such systems. Is this something that we should be paying particular attention to right now to increase the production and transfer of drones and drone technologies?
I'm really glad you brought this up. It's a great question. First of all, yes, the drones are a much more effective, cost-effective way. I mean, I talk to people in Ukraine who are on the front line or go back and forth, and one of them made a comment to me just in the last few days. He said, look, these artillery rounds that we're firing, they are costing between 2,300 to 2,900 euros, sometimes more, per shell. You can achieve the same level of destruction in many cases with a drone that only costs about $400. And the nice thing about a drone is you've got an operator behind it that is going to guide it into the target. When you fire an artillery or a mortar shell, you have to hope that the coordinates are right and it's going to hit exactly what it was you're intending it to hit, but it doesn't have any brains and it can't move and it cannot maneuver once it's been fired off. So that's one thing. The cost and the added utility of having a drone operator. But the difficulty is that all these years, the more than 2.5 years into the war, what are we seeing? Well, countries are, God bless them for trying to help, but they're sending drones still to this day where the commands and the signals to guide them are transmitted in the GSM spectrum. Well, that's useless. The Russians have had that spectrum jammed on the front lines for forever and ever. So people are sending drones and people are sending other pieces of equipment, but they're not doing their homework in advance to really understand whether this is going to be helpful or not.
Certainly. Well, yeah, it looks like the future is definitely these AI drones and fiber optics and what have you. Reuben Johnson, thank you very much for joining us tonight on World News. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.